So since Elon Musk endorsed Germany's far-right party, AfD, last month, I've been doing a lot of research into the party and its rise in German politics. And what's really interesting is the similarities AfD has with the MAGA movement, both in policies and in origin. So first off, both AfD and MAGA share some common philosophical threads, including a hardline approach to immigration, skepticism of multilateral organizations and multinational trade agreements, and also a focus on issues of cultural identity. And like the MAGA movement, AfD traces its origins back to the financial crisis. So the MAGA movement was actually originated out of the Tea Party movement, which arose in response to opposition to bank bailouts during the 2008 financial crisis. AfD came a little bit later during the Eurozone crisis, where they opposed bailouts of countries such as Greece and Ireland, and the cost, of course, that Germany bore in funding those bailouts. Now, as time went on, both movements started to morph into more cultural movements. Again, both focusing on issues of national identity, also focusing on restricting immigration. But as it stands, AfD is still a minority party in Germany. Right now, they're polling at a little over 19% for the country's upcoming snap elections in February, whereas MAGA is poised to control virtually all branches of government after the upcoming presidential inauguration. So why is this the case? Why did it happen this way? It has to do with the electoral systems of both countries. So in the United States, we nominate candidates for the general election via party primaries. These tend to be very low turnout elections that attract more partisan, polarized voters. And when the Tea Party rose to power, they used primaries strategically as a way to get Republicans they felt were insufficiently right-wing out of office. Now, in the United States, about 80% or so of congressional districts are safe seats. They are safely in the hands of either Republicans or Democrats. And so winning a party primary effectively wins you the general election. So again, the Tea Party would go into safe Republican districts, nominate hardline candidates, and ultimately use that as a way to move them into the House where they can enact policy. Trump used this in the Republican primary in 2016. A lot of people don't remember that he won the nomination of the Republican Party with 40% of the vote, or approximately about 9% of all registered voters. So again, a very small group of partisan polarized voters ultimately decided one of our choices on the ballot. Those numbers actually hold out on the Democratic side as well. AfD, in contrast, has to operate within Germany's system of proportional representation, which means that seats in government are awarded to that party's share of the popular vote. So AfD right now, I believe, is about 10% of all seats. They're polling, again, at a little over 19%, so you can expect them to net somewhere around 20% of seats in the Bundestag if these numbers hold constant. And I think this really highlights a weakness in our system of elections here in the United States, because MAGA voters definitely deserve a voice in government. They are a substantial group of voters. However, they're a faction of one of America's two political parties. So they're not even the whole party. And let's keep in mind that Trump only won his most recent primary with 75% of Republican voters, again, totaling about 10% of all registered voters. So a very small portion of voters were ultimately deciding one of our two choices effectively in this election. And I think moving to a system like Germany's of proportional representation would still give the MAGA wing a voice. It just wouldn't give them a bigger voice than everybody else, because there are moderate Republicans, moderate Democrats, and far left Democrats who are left out of the conversation. Now, there are moves to get a system like this implemented in the United States. There was recently a task force created in Congress, being chaired by Jared Golden of Maine and Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. These are two members of Congress, two Democrats who won re-election in Trump-leaning districts, so they know a little bit about working across the aisle. There's also been a bill called the Fair Rep Act that's been introduced in the last two sessions of Congress. Now, I don't necessarily think it's the smartest thing for us to wait for Washington to act. This is something that can be done at the state level, and there are some organizations looking to implement this in various states that are still pretty nascent. So if this is something you're interested in, definitely Google your state, see if there's an organization. If not, see if you can find some like-minded people and start one. And I always update this account with developments on this front, so feel free to drop me a follow if you want to learn more.